Howdy y'all, I am Ice Gold, and we have a lot of spells to go over today. Over the last week, a bunch of different content creators, big and small, have put out new teasers, exclusive teasers given to them by the King's Isle developers. And yeah, I mean, it's a huge overhaul of the shadow hit system and just sort of how that works and just sort of what all the spells are going to do going forward. So we are going to start with the fire spells, teased by the boy Mr. Bobcat. Definitely go check him out if you enjoy PvP, more than I do at least. So there you go. So the first one up is Fire from Above. Right now FFA does, yeah, it'll do like I think $9.95 on the PvE path, if I'm not mistaken. Right, okay, so $9.95 and then a 25% fuel versus, you know, $555 and 255 traps for the PvP path. So that is what's going on for FFA at the moment, but it is being changed to with the Shadow Pacts. Of course, that would be, where is it? Dark Fiend. So if you fuse Fire from Above with Dark Fiend, you can now have your FFA do, on the PvE path, 1,620 fire damage, which is insane, and it'll give 4 40% fire traps, with the Shadow Pact being you need to have heal overtimes on yourself. So for 3 rounds after you use this, you need to have a heal overtime, so that way it could sort of just consume it, that sort of thing. So that way the Shadow Pact gets fulfilled, because if you do not have one, you take 5% for each round that you don't have one on. So that's just going to be a constant for all of the Shadow Pacts. If you don't have them on, or if you aren't fulfilling the Shadow Pact, then you're going to take 5% of your max health for as many rounds as you don't have the pack fulfilled. So there you go. Fire from Above's PvP path looks like it's going to do considerably less, just sort of, you know, expected for PvP, and it'll put 575% traps with the same Shadow Pact. So 575% traps is kind of crazy, I gotta say, but yeah, that is FFA. Next up is the regular FFA, which is going to become, you've got a couple choices. You can either take the Tier 1, which does 415 fire damage and puts up fuel, or the second version, I guess, that does 450 damage, and if you gambit heal overtimes, you can get 2 65% fire traps for each heal overtime that you have, up to 2. So if you have 2 heal overtimes on yourself, you can get 4 65% fire traps with this card. Kind of neat. So that's FFA. Next up is Scorching Scimitars, and right now this is just a standard divide spell, but on the Shadow Path, or the PvE path rather, you have, it'll be a divide still, but you'll do 1,050 fire damage, and the pact is your target on it has to have a shield, and that is how you fulfill that pact. So there's that. If your target doesn't have a shield, you're taking 5%, exactly. Sub to fire starter 101 real. Alright, so, but yeah, if your target does not have shields up, then you will be taking that 5%. So that's what's going on there. And then the PvP path is, again, selected target, 720 damage, and a 900 heal overtime. That's 1 heal overtime, and it's the same Shadow Pact. So pretty neat there. I don't know how much it's going to see, but kind of neat. The non-Shad path, it's just going to be like a little hit and a heal overtime for 3 rounds. Not anything too special. And the bottom path is going to be like a mini King Artorias, as you can see. So King Artorias at the moment is a clear shields for heal overtimes before it does the damage. Scorching Scimitars looks like it's going to work much in the same way on the bottom path there. It's going to clear for, honestly, a pretty strong heal overtime for the pip cost, and then it's going to do 370 damage at max tier. So there you go, pretty neat for Scorching Scimitars. Next up is S'more Machine, and S'more at the moment looks to be the highest damaging Shad hit the fire is going to get, if I'm not mistaken, because it's going to do 1,625 fire damage, and at max tier, of course, and then it'll put 70% fire damage over time specific traps. Pretty crazy. It could work really, really well with something like Scald Incendiate. Even Rain of Fire Incendiate could be kind of funny with this one, so it's doable, I would say. And then the pact is, again, going to be heal over times on yourself. So, you know, again, 5% for every round you don't have a heal over time on yourself after you use this, up to 3 rounds, by the way. So the packs only last for 3 rounds. The PvP path looks to be doing actually quite a bit. It's gonna kind of smack somebody, and then it's gonna do a triple dot for 1,620 damage on that triple dot for 6 rounds. So the bottom path looks like it's gonna be pretty smacking. So there you go, same Shadow Pact as always. The not PvE, but the non-Shad version is gonna be honestly kind of similar to what S'more was on release, where it hits and then puts down 40% fire damage over time specific traps. So, okay, sure. And for the bottom path, it will do a bit of damage, you know, 5-10, pretty decent. And it will gambit up to 2 heal over times for a 490 dot. I am pretty sure that if you gambit 2 hots here, it will just make it a 980 single dot. I could be wrong. I could actually be very wrong because hots are valued very weirdly, so are dots, very, very highly rather. So it could be a double dot, it could be a single but stronger dot. We'll just have to find out. Don't know what it's going to be like, but we'll find that out on Test Realm, which should be coming out this week. So there's S'more done with. Raging Bull is the next one up. This is one that I touched on in yesterday's video. I got ragged on this one because for some ungodly reason, I mean, you can see it does 1,010 damage at max tier and then puts on 3 975 bomb dots, so kind of cool. Or no, that's 975 split across 3 bomb dots. And then the Shadow Pact is dots on the target. Of course, this I don't even know what to say here because this eats its own effect to fulfill the pact. I don't think they thought this one through. There's a few that are like it. We're gonna have to see if they tweak that going into Test Realm. And then the PvP path on the Shad version is going to do honestly kind of similar damage. It's going to do about 80 less, but it is going to be selective target, and it's going to drop 3 6-round bomb dots that go up to 1,545 damage, but of course it is going to be eating its own dots to fulfill the pact, so not very useful, but we'll see if they rework it. And then the non-Shad path is going to be, honestly, it's kind of okay, you know, it's a 6-pip AoE hit on the top path, 470 fire damage, and it'll put a smoke screen, and that is better than Meteor, right? Okay, yeah, it's pretty considerably better than Meteor, but, you know, at that point, why not just use Fire Dragon? And the bottom path is going to be kind of interesting. It's going to be a selective target card, and it'll detonate 2 dots for 130% damage. At the moment, the card takes a Shad, does, honestly, not that much more, but it'll detonate 2 dots for 180%. So, kind of interesting, but I do remind y'all that Apocalypse is getting a significant buff on its detonate. I think it's going to be going up to 145%, so anybody trying to use this in advanced content, or at least the detonate mechanic in advanced content, should look more towards Apocalypse than the new Raging Bull. So, yeah, that is Raging Bull, and I believe the last one up is, the last one up is Blastoff. So, right now, Blastoff is garbage, as we well know. It basically just does, it's a bomb dot, and then it extends a dot by a round, so, I don't know, bro. But, now it's going to be extending a dot by a round still, and the bomb dot is going to remain, but it's going up actually quite a bit, so it's going to become a 1,760 fire bomb dot, goes off after 4 rounds, and the pact is shields on the target, so, you know, par for the course. And then the PvP path is going to be what looks like a quintuple dot. It's going to be a selective target, 560 on a double dot for 3 rounds, interestingly. And the The back end is going to be 1,350 damage across 3 6-round bomb dots. So, kind of neat. And then the pact, again, is going to be shields on the target. So, yeah, and then the non-Shadow Path is going to be, it extends a dot by a turn, and its bomb dot, you know, kind of as useless as usual. And then the PvP path is going to be 2 bomb dots for 820 damage on a selected target hit, and it'll clear up to 5 shields on the target for, what's looking like, it's actually going to do like a lot of damage. I don't really know how to read this card necessarily, but it's going to be like 500 fire damage split across 2 dots for 3 rounds. I think that's if you clear 1. I think so. I think if you clear one shield, it's going to be 500 damage on a double dot, I believe. So there's that. I think the more shields you clear, the stronger it is going to get. So, little heads up on that. And then the new Shadow form, rather, is going to be Shadow Fiend, plus 25% outgoing damage and plus 25 outgoing pierce. When you use it, it gives you a fire pip and does not use it, or does not give you fire pips as time goes on, so it's not like a quicken effect. Important to clear that up, and it's the same for all of these. And the pact is traps on the target. So put up some fuels, go into, you know, Shadow Fiend form, and you'll be alright. And then the enchant, the fusion, is going to be Dark Fiend. This is going to do 75 shadow damage, and it'll put on 3 70% dot traps. So, pretty neat. And the pack for this one is going to be traps on yourself. So, little heads up on that. So, that is all the fire teasers. We've already been here for 12 minutes. Awesome. Let's move on to the ice school. Kicking off for the ice school is going to be Freeze Ray. Kind of an interesting one. So the non-Shad Path is going to just do 455 ice damage AoE. Kinda decent, I guess. Yeah, sure. And then the bottom path is actually going to be very interesting. This is, honestly, ice is even good with this. Up to 5 times clear a negative charm on yourself. So things like weaknesses and infections, and it'll put 20% weaknesses on the target, and then it'll do 460 ice damage. So pretty good. It's like Woolly Mammoth Jr., if y'all are familiar with that. It's it just is less value, but at a better pip range for PvP. So kind of neat. And then the Shad version is going to be, it'll do up to 940 ice damage AoE, and the Shadow Pact is going to be weaknesses on yourself, which is a little counterintuitive, but sure, why not? And then the bottom path of the Shad version is going to be selected target 775 ice damage, and it'll put up 245% weaknesses on each target, and same Shadow Pact. So, not really good, but overall, you know, that's ice for you. So, Shadowhorn is up next. Top path is shit garbage. 345 ice damage for 5 whole pips, and it'll taunt yourself for 2 rounds. So, I mean, it's a mechanic that exists, I guess. And then the bottom non-Shad path is 355 ice damage, and then Gambits. 3 traps for 40% weaknesses. Could be decent, maybe, not really. The Shad path is going to be much more damage, but the same taunt effect, and the Shadow Pact here is going to be traps on the target. So, heads up about that. And then the bottom path is going to be kind of like the same as the bottom path of the non-Shad version. It's going to hit, and then it's going to put on 3 minus 45% weaknesses. So, kind of cool. And the same Shadow Pact. Climaclysm is up next. This is another one where I think we're eating kind of good. It's going to do 230 ice damage selected target and put down 160% ice trap. That's pretty strong. And then the bottom path is going to do a little bit more damage, but it's going to gambit to weaknesses for 70% ice traps. So, kind of neat, you know. Break a shield, put on a giant trap. There you go. And then next up, for the Shad version of Climaclysm, it's just going to be a selected target hit for 1040 damage. And the Shadow Pact is going to be weaknesses on the target. So, I mean, just toss on like a 3-fold fever or something, and there you go. And then the bottom path is going to be actually pretty cool. 565 selective target damage, and then 365% ice traps. That's pretty strong. And then it'll be the same Shadow Pact there, so kind of neat. And then next on the list, Snowball Barrage. This is an interesting one. The non-Shad path is going to go up to 65 ice damage per pip. So pretty neat there. And yeah, I mean, it's not that far behind Tempest at this point, so pretty cool. And then the bottom path is going to clear 5 weaknesses on yourself, and then for shields, interestingly, and then it'll do 465 ice damage. I didn't even realize this, but I think this is actually going to be way better than Freeze Ray, just because it's the same clear weaknesses before you hit kind of card, but it gives you a better effect in the 40% tower shields, and then does, I think, 5 more damage for some reason, so I'm down for that. So there you go. That is the new Snowball Barrage. And then next up, the Shad version is actually going to be going up to 135 ice damage per pip, and the Shadow Pact is going to be weaknesses on yourself. Again, a little counterintuitive with the Pact, but who knows? Maybe some boss in Darkmoor is going to be putting infections on you. Who can really say for sure? And then the bottom path is going to be a selective target, 770 ice damage, and then puts on 360% tower shields. Kind of neat. And then same Shadow Pact. So overall, Snowball Barrage, it's alright. It's pretty good. Abominable Weaver is up next, and the non-Shad path, first part is going to be 385 ice damage and a tower shield. So I mean, it's neutered even more. So there you go. And then the second version of it is going to be slightly less damage, but it'll gambit 3 traps for 75% chromatic shields. So kind of interesting there. And then the Shad path is going to honestly restore Abominable Weaver to its former glory. It is going to do 1175 ice damage and then put up a 50% tower shield. And the pact is going to be traps on the target, so pretty easy to fulfill. And then the PvP version of that path is going to be 730 damage and then 380% chromatic shields. This is the highest it's gone so far, and I think it's pretty neat. Will I be using it? I won't be playing, but there you go. I mean, I think it is still pretty decent. It can be a nice little surprise. Neat little counter to Shrike, or should I say Shadow Nova? We'll get to that anyway. So, same Shadow Pact there. And then Ice's, yeah, so Ice's little enchant. Shout out HJJ for these teasers, by the way. So Ice's little enchant is going to be Dark Sentinel. If you use it just as is, it'll do 75 shadow damage, put up 3 tower shields, and the Shadow Pact for it is you've got to, or the target has to have blades. So yeah, there you go. And then for Shadow Sentinel, which has sorely needed a rework ever since launch in 2013, it'll now intercept 50% damage and put up a 30% like incoming damage aura. So, or minus 30% incoming damage aura. So it's like a stronger brace, pretty much. That's if we needed more of those. So anyway, I'll be running 18 braces, not 19. Balance can run 19 braces. But yeah, you know, 18 braces in some form or fashion. And the Shadow Pact is going to be shields on yourself, which is pretty easy to fulfill. So kind of neat there. And that is going to wrap up the ice teasers. Next on the list is the storm teasers, and this one, okay, so we're going to start with Rusalka. So the non-Shad path is going to be 745 damage, so honestly pretty good, and it'll give you a random storm blade, 15%, 45%, or 60%, pretty solid in my opinion. And then the bottom path is going to do 695 damage and gambit, up to 3 in, or weaknesses rather, for 55% chromatic blades. Pretty neat. So, there you go. The Shad version, however, is going to be doing 2005 storm damage, and it'll give the same random storm blade, and the Shadow Pact here is going to be weaknesses on the target. So that's going to be pretty nuts. And then the bottom path of it is going to do 1,230 storm damage, and then it'll give 360% chromatic blades. So this would be really, really good if cards like, you know, Impair didn't exist, but still, you know, it can be a good little pressure tool. So there you go, that's Rusalka. And then next up is Sound of Musicology. The top path is going to be doing 475 storm damage, and it'll give a 35% blade. Kind of, you know, not great because Bunyip is right there, but the bottom path is going to be doing 580 selected target damage, and it'll gambit 3 blades for 50% storm blades. I think this is honestly pretty neat, because if you use like an elemental blade and then send it, it'll turn the fire and ice blades into 50% storm blades. So, kind of neat. I like it. So, there you go. And then, for the Shad path, the top path is going to be doing 1320 storm damage, and it'll give a 45% blade, kind of similar to what it does right now. And the here's another one. The Shadow Pact is going to be blades on yourself. So you use this card, it immediately eats the blade. There you go. And then the bottom path is going to do 1000 storm damage, and then 365% storm blades, and it'll be the same Shadow Pact. So again, eats itself up. Ouroboros, if you know what I mean. Anyway, so next one, Iron Sultan is going to be selective target, 540 damage. Pretty decent. And then the bottom path is going to be 385 selective target damage, and it'll gambit a heal over time for 245% weaknesses. Personally, I like the negative aura that it currently has, but to each their own, because it loses it fully. The Shadow Path is going to be doing 1495 storm damage, and it'll put on 245% weaknesses. And then the Shadow Pact here is going to be heal over times on yourself. Pretty good, honestly, because Storm can get themselves heal over times, so that's pretty neat. And then next up is the PvP path of the Shad path, and it's going to be 885 storm damage for 45% weaknesses with the same Shadow Pact. So kind of neat, I gotta say. Dark and Stormy is up next, and the top path is going to do 670 storm damage and 450 healing for 3 rounds. Kind of neat. And then the bottom path is going to be 765 storm damage, and it will gambit up to 3 curses for 540 heal on a heal over time for 5 rounds. So I think that will just get stronger the more curses you gambit. So pretty neat. All around, pretty high. Who snagged that cattail? Because it was not me. And I don't see anybody. Alright. Anyway, the Shad path of it is going to be doing 1590 storm damage and 1350 healing over 5 rounds. Pretty wild, if you ask me. And then the Shadow Pact is going to be curses on the target. So, pretty high. Love to see it. And then okay, I got the cattail this time. Sick. And then the PvP path is going to be 1290 storm damage, and it'll put 1920, or not 2 of those, but 2 heal over times that add up to 1920 health over 5 rounds with the same Shadow Pact. So, you know, pretty strong. It's another big heal that Storm is getting. And then the Shadow Pacts is it's going to be Dark Shrike from the looks of things. Alright, the teasers don't really have it up. But from the looks of things, 75 shadow damage, and it's going to put on what looks to be some blades. I can't really see what's going on here in the teaser. But I do see that the Shadow Pact for it is going to be damage over times on yourself. So, okay, sure. There you go. And then the next one up is going to be the new Shrike. Okay, so the new Shadow Shrike is going to do 45% outgoing damage, not pierce anymore. It'll give you a Storm Pip, and the Shadow Pact is going to be charms on yourself. So, kind of neat, but don't fret, because we are about to get to Shrike's replacement in the Myth teasers. So, let us head on over to the Myth School. So for Myth, we're going to be starting off with Tatzelworm Terror, and the top path is going to do 1005 Myth damage, and have a 50% chance to confuse the target. That's like Medulla's little mechanic for a turn. And the Shadow Pact here is going to be traps on the target. But the bottom path of the Shad version here is going to do 700 myth damage and then put 360% universal traps down with the same Shadow Pact. So it's just going to eat its own effect. So that's awesome. I think that KI should reevaluate this one. Next up is the non-Shad path. Tatzelworm is going to do 355 myth damage and then still have the same 50% confuse for a turn chance. And then the bottom one, the bottom path is going to do 415 selected target damage and gambit up to 3 traps for 50% universal traps. So, I mean, I don't think this card is going to see much use. Next up is Snake Charmer, and this one, kind of interesting. Okay. The top path is going to do 925 selected target damage, pretty neat, and the Shadow Pact is going to be curses on yourself, so things like weaknesses, again, kind of counterintuitive. And then the bottom path is going to do 645 selected target damage, and then it'll put on a 350 myth dot for 3 rounds, kind of neat, and then the same Shadow Pact. So, there you go. Next up is the non-Shad path, and the top path I think is actually pretty interesting. It's going to do 45 myth damage for an initial hit, select a target of course, and then it's going to do 430 myth damage over 3 rounds on a dot, so 4 pips for that, pretty cool. And then the bottom path of this card is going to clear up to 3 curses, so weakness clear before the hit, that kind of thing, and that those are going to get turned into 225 on a myth dot per weakness cleared, I imagine. So pretty neat, and then it'll hit for 330 damage. So kind of neat, kind of interesting. Mystic Colossus is up next, and the first version of it is going to remove a shield before the hit, and then it'll do 790 damage. And the Shadow Pact here is going to be shields on the target, so it removes a shield and then uses more shields on the target for the pact, so kind of interesting. And then the second version is going to hit for 735 myth damage, and then it'll put 355% tower shields, same Shadow Pact, you know the vibes at this point. No Shad path is going to be remove 1 shield and 290 damage, or steal 4 shields and then 390 damage on the PvP version. So, sure, I guess, for 5 pips. And then Barbarian Saga is up next. The Shad version is going to be doing 1,265 myth damage, and then it'll put on a bomb dot for 230 damage that goes up after 3 rounds. And the Shadow Pact here is shields on yourself. And the bottom path is going to do 920 damage and then put on 2 myth bomb dots for 770 damage total. And they go off after 5 rounds, and it'll be the same Shadow Pact. So, kind of neat. And then the non-Shad version is going to be, it hits for 475 and then does 220 on the bomb dot after 3 rounds. Sick. And then the bottom path is going to do 480 myth damage and gambit up to 3 shields for damage on a bomb dot. So 250 myth damage on the bomb dot for each shield. So it's basically like Orthros Jr. for some reason, and Orthros is already not a good card. So there you have it. And next up is Witch's House Call. This one is going to do 1,560 myth damage on the Shad path, and it'll summon its minion to 70% traps, universal traps, and the pact here is going to be dots on the target. So a little counterintuitive. If you're fulfilling the pact, you're just getting rid of your traps that it's creating. So there's that. And then the PvP path for the Shad path is going to be 885 myth damage, 570% universal traps, and same Shadow Pact. So kind of interesting there. The non-Shad path for Witch's House Call going to be, 610 myth damage and then summon the minion, par for the course. And then the bottom path is going to do 525 damage and gambit up to 2 dots for 260% traps. So up to 4 traps if you gambit 2 dots. Kind of neat. And then the next one up for Myth is going to be its fusion. This is Dark Nova. It'll do 75% shadow damage, or not 75%, but 75 shadow damage, and then 30% universal traps, and the pact is going to be weaknesses on yourself. So, pretty neat there. And then this is the Shrike replacement. This is going to be Shadow Nova, and this is going to give 50% outgoing Pierce. It'll give you a Myth Pip when you use it, and its pact is going to be traps on the target. So this is going to be the Shrike replacement for those unaware. So yeah, it's definitely not going to be what Shrike is. It's losing its damage buff. It's losing its 10% Dragon Spear after every hit. But still pretty neat. Overall, pretty cool. So there you have it. And yeah, that's all the next teasers. Up is the life teasers, starting off with Lord of the Jungle. This is on the Shad Path, going to do 1015 life damage, and then it will give you 265% life blades, pretty strong, and the Shadow Pact is going to be dots on the target, pretty cool. And then the bottom path here is going to be select a target, 755 damage, and then it'll give you three 55% life blades and guiding lights, pretty cool. And with the same Shadow Pact of dots on the target, so kind of neat. And then the non-Shad Path is going to be similar to what the card was on launch, and if I'm not mistaken, what the card still is. Yes, okay, so it'll do 390 life damage and convert 10% of your absorbs, I think that's supposed to be, to life blades, pretty much. So kind of interesting there. And then the bottom path is going to be select a target, 455 life damage and gambit, up to 2 dots on the target for a 60% life blade and guiding light each. So kind of neat. Next up is Grenadier, and this one on the top path is going to do 1130 life damage, and then it'll pacify yourself for 2 rounds, with the Shadow Pact being charms on yourself. So pretty cool. And then the bottom path is going to be 750 life damage, and then 780 life damage split across 2 bomb dots that go off after 5 rounds, with the same Shadow Pact of blades on yourself. So pretty neat. And then the bottom path is going to be, 345 life damage, and it pacifies yourself, so sure, whatever. And then the bottom path is going to be 380 life damage, and then gambits up to 3 blades for damage on a bomb dot that goes off after 5 rounds. So 225 life damage per blade gambited. Next up, Hungry Caterpillar. This is kind of a crazy one. The first version is going to do 875 life damage and give yourself an 800 absorb with a Shadow Pact of traps on yourself. So kind of like a neat little counter there. And then the second version is going to do 340 life damage with 1130 HP on the heal. Kind of nuts. Split across 2 hots for 4 rounds. Oh my goodness. And then the non-Shad Path, the first version is going to do 278 life damage and 800 on the absorb. And then the second version is going to do 340 life damage and clear up to 4 traps for 250 health on the caster per trap cleared. So, pretty neat. Next up is Lamassu. This one on the Shad Path, just going to be a pretty standard selective target type spell, 860 life damage, and the Shadow Pact is traps on yourself. Once more. And then the bottom path here is going to do 565 selective target damage, and it'll give you 255% life blades. So, it's alright. And then the Shadow Pact is going to be the same. So, there you go. Next up, the non-Shad version of Lamassu. It's going to be 360 life damage on the top path, kind of par for the course. And then the bottom path, 305 life damage, and it'll clear up to 3 traps for 35% life blades. So, kind of neat. It's like the Centaur clear effect, but just for 2 less pips. So there you go. And then next up is Wings of Fate. This is a whole controversial thing because the top path, it's going to become 75 and then 855 life damage on regular dots, by the way. So sure, there you go. And then 75 plus 825 on a heal, both overtimes for 3 rounds, and the Shadow Pact is going to be Charms on yourself. And the bottom path of the Shad Path is going to do 1,125 life damage split across 3 bomb dots, and it'll give 1,920 health split across 2 hots for 5 rounds. So yeah, same Shadow Pact. This is just going to be another Jade spell. A 5th Giga Heal has hit the World Trade Center pretty much. So there you have it. I hope this gets copy limited. And the non-Shad Path is going to do basically just 75 on the initial hit and then 300 on the dot. And then it's going to be the same for the heal over time on the top path. And the bottom path, 680 split across 2 bomb dots for 5 rounds. And the Gambit here is going to be 3 times Gambit Blade for 530 HP per blade gambited for 5 rounds. So, yeah, woo, we love jading. that's where we're at. And then the Shadow form is going to be Shadow Seraph. This is going to be plus 35% outgoing healing and plus 25% outgoing damage, which is pretty neat. It'll give you a life pip when you use it, and the pact here is going to be Charms on yourself. Next up is Life's Little Fusion. This is going to be Dark Seraph, 75 shadow damage, and then 680 health for 4 rounds. And the Shadow Pact is going to be Traps on yourself. So another little counter and another little heal for a Shad. So there you go, Dark Seraph, and that will wrap up the Life School teasers. For the Death School, we're going to be starting off with Call of Cthulhu. The first version is going to be, it's honestly kind of a slight buff. It's going to do 690 death drain damage, and the Shadow Pact is going to be a heal over time on the target. And the second version of the Shad Path is going to be select target 605 death drain, and then it'll put 2 minus 40% chromatic weaknesses on, so kind of neat. And then it'll be the same Shadow Pact. For the next one up, it's going to be Call of Cthulhu's non-Shad Path. The first one is going to do 315 death drain damage, kind of standard, and although Ship of Fools does seriously outclass it, thinking about it. And then the second version of it is going to be doing 320 death drain damage, selected target of course, and it'll clear up to 2 heal overtimes for 30% chromatic weaknesses. This was a missed opportunity on the dev's part. This really could have been our clear 2 hots for infections spell, but it just isn't happening for some reason. I guess they just really want a clear hots for weaknesses card, so I don't know, missed opportunity here to make a hit in Contagion. They just didn't decide to do it because they suck. Alright, next up is going to be Grim Reader. This is an interesting one. The top path is going to do 1,195 death damage, and it'll put on 2 25% weaknesses, with the Shadow Pact being shields on yourself. Kind of neat. And then the bottom path is going to be doing 880 death damage, and it'll put on 3 minus 45% chromatic weaknesses with the same Shadow Pact. So there you have it. Pretty easy pact to fulfill for all that. I feel like deaths are going to get some mileage out of Grim Reader once the update drops. Next up is its non-Shad Path. This is going to be doing 455 death damage and 2 25% weaknesses on the top path. Pretty interesting there. And then it looks like the bottom path is a little screwy in terms of the damage values. I imagine this is supposed to be like 475, 480 at the max tier. And it'll be gambiting 3 or up to 3 shields for 45% chrome weaknesses. So it's like Dark Sprite's Gambit, but I guess just more of it. So sure, I guess. Next up is Winged Sorrow's Shad Path. This is going to be doing 1,110 death damage, and it will be putting a Plague 20%, and the Shadow Pact is going to be Charms on the target. So, alright buddy, you just walked through a wall. So, there you go. And so Charms on the target, again, not as reliable necessarily, but sometimes you can use it, sometimes it can pay off. So, there you go. The bottom path is going to be doing 855 death damage, and it is going to put on 2 minus 45% weaknesses. This will just be a single target for all of it, and then the pact is going to be the same. 2 charms, or not 2 charms, but just charms on the target. So that will be the pact. And then next up is its non-shad path. It looks like it's just a carbon copy of Grim Reader, more or less, except it's going to be an AoE 20% weakness instead of 2 25s to a single target. Sure, I guess. And then the bottom path is going to be, it's actually going to be pretty good. It's going to be a Blades to Weaknesses card. For 6 pips, 455 death damage, and clear up to 5 blades for 25% weaknesses. Scarecrow does exist, but I don't know. Maybe this is in a better pip range. Who knows? So we'll have to see how that goes, or see if it's viable at all in the meta going forward. Next up is Snack Attack, and for this one, it will push a curse to the opponent, and then do 915 death damage, with the pact being a shield on yourself. Pretty neat. And then, yeah, the bottom path is going to be selected target 700 death damage, and then 3 50% death blades with the same Shadow Pact. Pretty nice. And then, I wonder how many times I've said like pretty neat or pretty nice throughout this video. It's probably a million. So the non-shad path is going to be push a curse to the target, and then 505 AoE damage, so, kind of par for the course, kind of what we have right now. And then the bottom path is going to be 525 selective target damage, and it'll gambit up to 3 shields for 55% death blades. So, there is that. I mean, of course, will I ever advocate for, using triple blade cards when Impair exists? Probably not, but, yeah, play the game how you want, I guess, so. There is that. Next up is Kisma's Curse, and the shad version is going to be 900 selected target damage with a 75% tower shield attached to it, and the pact is going to be Blades on yourself. And the bottom path here is going to be doing 565 death damage for 3 70% tower shields, and it's going to have the same Shadow Pact as always. So there you have that. Could be pretty useful. The non-shad path just going to do 370 select target damage, and then the bottom path is going to do 285 death damage, and the gambit up to 2 blades for 70% tower shields. So, sure, I guess. Next one is going to be Shadow Shepherd. This is kind of an interesting one. This is going to be Death's new Shadow form. It is going to be increasing your outgoing death drain damage by 55%. It'll give you a death pip upon using it, and then the pact is going to be weaknesses on the target. So, pretty neat there. And then Dark Shepherd is going to be Death's new fusion. It's going to do 75%, there you go again, 75 shadow damage, and then it'll put on 3 20% weaknesses, and the pact will be a heal over time on the target. So, kind of neat. That is going to wrap up all of the death spells. Balance is the final school up here, and we're going to start with Old One's Endgame. These teasers courtesy of Daniel Sunsword. Of course, the death ones I forgot to mention. Those were courtesy of Anton Constantine. Check them out. Yeah, so the no shad path for Old One's Endgame is going to be doing 420 balance damage, and then it'll put up a Prism Blade, so kind of nice. The bottom path is going to do 390 selective target damage, and then gambit up to 3 shields for 530 HP per shield gambited. So there you go, more healing. Amazing. And then the Shadow Path is going to do 980 balance damage, and then it's going to put up the Prism Blade, and the pact here is going to be shields on yourself. Pretty easy to fulfill that. And the bottom path is going to be 780 balance damage with 1,520 health split across 2 heal over times that last 4 rounds. So, yeah, more healing. Hooray. There you go. Same Shadow Pact, of course. And then Mockenspiel's No Shadow Path is going to be 435 balance damage, and then turn 3 times, turn any blade to, I'm assuming that's supposed to be universal blades. I think I've seen cards do this before, so that'll turn any blade that you have on you up to 3 times into a universal blade. So balance can use that. And then the bottom path is going to be 355 balance damage, and then Gambit up to 2 dots for 240% weaknesses each for a maximum of 4. So there you go. The Shad version is going to be 1,170 balance damage, 9 times turn any blades on yourself into universal blades, and then the Shadow Pact is going to be dots on the target. And then the bottom path is going to be 690 balance damage, 545% weaknesses, and the Shadow Pact is again going to be the same. Next up is Sandworm, and the No Shad Path's top path is going to be 280 damage and a 35% universal trap, so sure, I guess, hit and trap, there you go. And then the bottom path is going to be 300 selective target balance damage, and then it'll Gambit up to 2 charms for 55% universal traps, so got a couple options there. Next up is going to be the Shad version of Sandworm, and that's going to be 900 balance damage and a 55% universal trap, with the Gambit, or the Shadow Pact rather, being charms on the caster. So there you go. Bottom path is going to be 580 selective target damage, 355% universal traps with the same pact. Next up is Nested Fury, everybody's favorite. This is going to be doing 450 ice damage, 535 fire damage, or 660 storm damage on the No Shad Path's top path. This is honestly pretty crazy in my opinion. This is like really strong for a 6-pipper. Though I guess granted Power Nova is much stronger. So, take your pick. And then the bottom path is going to be selective target 410 balance damage, and it will Gambit up to 2 heal over times for 270% shields for a total of 4 tops. So there you go. The Shad version is going to be 1,105 elemental damage, and then 275% tower shields, and the pact is going to be a heal over time on the caster. And then the bottom path of the Shad Path is going to be 745 selective target damage, 575% tower shields with the same pact. Next on the list is going to be Gaze of Fate. This is an interesting one. It's looking like Gaze of Fate finally getting some love. So there you go. For 5 pips, it'll do 120 balance and then 120 random school damage. And then it will change the bubble to balance. So finally balance gets a non-Shad hitting bubble at long last. So there you go. And then the second version of the No Shad Path is going to do 180 balance and then 180 chromatic damage, and then it'll Gambit 3 traps for 45% blades. Cool. The Shad version, the first version is going to do 520 balance damage, then 520 random damage, and then change the bubble to a balance bubble, and then the Shadow Pact is going to be traps on the target, with the PvP version being 370 balance and chromatic damage, and then it'll give 3 50% chromatic blades with the same Shadow Pact. Next on the list, that's going to be Shadow Trickster. This is going to be Balance's new form. You use it, it's honestly kind of interesting. So you use it, and it'll do 25% outgoing damage while you're in the form, and it'll steal a pip, and it'll give you a balance pip when you use it, and then the Shadow Pact here is going to be a blade on yourself. So kind of neat. And then this one has really confused a lot of people, and rightfully so. This is Dark Trickster. This is Balance's fusion for all of their Shad spells. this is going to do 75%. Again, this is the third time. 75 shadow damage, and then it'll put 2 35% chromatic spears on yourself, and then 2 Weavematic. That's what people have been saying, Weavematic, so it takes your weaving school. So, for example, I weave Storm on my balance, so this would put 2 Storm traps, 2 35% Storm traps on the target, and then the Pact here is going to be shields on yourself. So, confusing card. It's like 5 symbols in a row, but, you know, that's what it does. So, reiterate one more time. 2 35% chromatic spears for extra pierce on your next hit, and 2 Weavematic 35% traps. I hope that explains it. This is definitely ask in the comments if you are unsure or need some more clarification, but for now, that is going to be all of the shadow spell changes coming to the game in the Darkmoor update this fall. I expect Test Realm any day now. We're really just going to have to see when it drops, but I do expect it to be this week. I'm going to say that right now. So, yeah, overall, that's all of them. there were a ton. We've been here for an hour. But anyway, thank y'all for watching. I've been Ice Gold. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave like 50 comments for the algorithm. My Discord is down in the description if you want to chat with me some more. And I will see y'all later.